What's going on, everyone? How are you doing today? So yesterday, nice surprise, I got this in the mail from Del Rey. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. This is the expanded edition. So now I have access to the whole book. I'm going to go through it and see all of the important stuff that I can find in there. Lots of extra stuff in here that we didn't get in the movie, which is unfortunate, but I mean, the universe is so large that how are they going to cram everything in there? But that being said, I do agree that we should have gotten some plot points such as how did Palpatine return in the film itself? I mean, it was a cut scene, in fact, as Ian McDiarmid said regarding that scene, that Kylo was supposed to be you're just a clone, and Palpatine would have replied or responded saying, more than a clone, less than a man. So, going on to today's video is a continuation from yesterday's and the day before. Now, today's video is going to cover the son of Palpatine, because in the film we saw it, and a lot of us, we were flabbergasted, if you will, regarding Rey's lineage, that she's a granddaughter of Palpatine. But what a lot of other people were wondering, including myself, is what's the deal with his son? We see him for pretty much a split second in a vision kind of thing, and that was it. See you later. That was done. So why didn't Palpatine use his son? Was his son powerful? His son kind of looked like him, you know, almost in a weird, eerie, identical way as a younger version. I was able to see that. So today we're going to go into that, and this is from the novelization itself. So let's get started. Now, we're going to pick up from yesterday's video, and yesterday's video was talking about how the Sith cultists were going crazy when Palpatine, when the clone vessel that he created was not up to par, or they were trying to create clone vessels and they weren't what they wanted. So here we are. The heretics of the Sith Eternal toiled, splicing genes, bolstering tissue, creating unnatural abominations in the hope that one of these strandcasts would succeed and become a worthy receptacle. The heretics would do anything, risk anything, sacrifice anything to create a cradle for their god consciousness, right? So Palpatine's mind was just floating around, and then it was in this unfortunate clone. Now, nothing worked, but their efforts were not entirely in vain. One genetic strand cast lived, thrived even. A not quite identical clone, his, and it quotes, son. But he was a useless, powerless failure. Palpatine could not bear to even look upon such disappointing ordinariness, which is such a Palpatine thing, that we just look down upon and be like, the boy's only worth would lay in continuing the bloodline through more natural methods. And it was through that eventual union, unexpected as it was, regarding his wife or girlfriend, who created, they got together and they created Rey, that Rey was born. The perfect vessel, strong enough to contain all the power of the Sith. His granddaughter. Or what I like to now think, really, his daughter, in a way. I mean, it's his clone. His clone had her. So we could pretty much say that she is both his granddaughter and her and his daughter. So it's interesting. Now, my question here is, why didn't he try to clone Anakin or Luke or Darth Maul or Count Dooku or Yoda, which I think he did, and that's the whole point of The Mandalorian, I believe. Now, my second info on this for you guys is, we know that cloning is a big oof, right? For the most part, if you want to clone Force sensitives, and we've gotten this from the Force Unleashed game, shout out to Sam Witwer, Galen Merrick, Starkiller, right? We know that they tried to clone him millions of times, but it failed. So half the time, or more than half the time, the clones would be unresponsive to the Force. They would just be these, same as the son here, as Palpatine's son, kind of like Jango's son, but Jango didn't have Force powers. So they were these useless vessels, the powerless, and they couldn't use the Force. They had no Force abilities whatsoever. Then, in the event, the other side of the coin is, in the event that they were Force sensitive, which was a very, very small, rare chance, they would have a lot of mental issues. They would have a lot of suicidal tendencies. They would have a lot of issues with being controlled. They couldn't be controlled, which is like what we saw in the game. So that is the hard part about cloning, at least from what we know in Legends. Now, since they're kind of taking Legends from Dark Empire, and it's now canon, at least the premise of it is, then maybe cloning, and it seems from what we can read here, cloning is kind of the same thing. It's still very difficult to do. It's not simple. As it says, they splice genes, they tried different abominations, and that's why we saw, vats of Snoke, because there were different versions of him. And I feel like, since with Palpatine's clone here, not his son, but his actual clone that his body went into and was trapped in until he could find a proper vessel that could harbor his spirit and all the power of the Sith, that vessel was completely deteriorating. And this is kind of a common theme. Snoke was deteriorating. We see, it looks like two different versions of Snoke in The Force Awakens and in The Last Jedi. In The Last Jedi, he looks a little younger, a little more youthful. And then in The Force Awakens, he was just deteriorating completely in that hologram. If you look at the two images, they're very different. So that's the information regarding the son. He was indeed just his clone. He wasn't actually his son. So Palpatine never got down with anyone. He never had a wife or girlfriend that we know of. So Rey's granddaughter revealed. I mean, there really wasn't one. If we want to think of it, her mother was Palpatine's clone's girlfriend or wife or whatever. So that's the answer to this question. I mean, really, there is no other answer to it because it was his clone. They were trying so many different things that eventually, they kept cloning him, and there were all these failed clones. Some of them were just like warped and deformed and all that, and the other one was a perfect vessel that thrived, but not perfect for his perfect purposes. It was just alive. It just lived, and obviously had a different mentality, and it went rogue. So we're seeing a lot of the Force Unleashed type of stuff here, and it's pretty cool to see. I just, I kind of wish they would bring Galen Merrick into this, Starkiller into this, and I think that would be pretty sweet to see as well. That would have been cool. They had Sam Witwer as the son. That would have been pretty sweet. Now that we're on the topic of Palpatine's, who he might have gotten down with, regarding the Khorasan Underworld show, which I believe is being manifested in The Mandalorian now, or at least a lot of the key points, George Lucas wrote this show about Khorasan's Underworld, the scum and villainy below the actual city, regarding bounty hunters, and particularly such as Boba, and scum and villainy such as the thieves and this and that, which we saw a lot of in the new Darth Maul canon comic, where he has a vision where he turns into a Jedi that Sidious put him through. In there, apparently, George had written 50 scripts, 50 episodes, supposedly. And in an interview online with someone that I forgot his name, but he apparently worked on the show before it was scrapped. And I mentioned this in another video a while back. He said that supposedly in that script, Palpatine was going to have a backstory on how he turned to the dark side. Not how he turned, sorry. How he was cemented further in the dark side and how he became even more angry and resentful. And that was because of a woman. A woman broke his heart, and he was very upset and very heartbroken. And for that reason, he unleashed unlimited power and became more and more powerful as time went on, because he was just in pain. And as we know, when you're in pain as a Sith, it fuels your anger, it fuels your strength. So, I'm glad we didn't see the light of day on this one, and I hope we won't, because I feel like Palpatine is such a powerful character, if not the most powerful character in all of Star Wars, possibly next to Vitiate, who was also a Sith Emperor, and he was really cool as well. But, and Nihilus, okay, tangent now. Comment below, who do you think is the most powerful Sith Lord in all of Star Wars, ever? Legends as well included. Back to my point. I'm glad we didn't see this, because Palpatine is he's a powerful character that he shouldn't be humanized, in the sense that, he feels the same things we do with breakups and this and that, where we are vulnerable. Palpatine doesn't really have any vulnerability, and that's what makes him so terrifying, is that he just kind of laughs at everything. You've never really ever seen him serious or concerned, except for maybe that one time where he tried to escape fighting Yoda at the end of Revenge of the Sith, and then, if so powerful you are, why leave? And he was just like, ugh, or he just maybe was annoyed there. But I feel like Palpatine, I don't know. I don't know if he ever got, had a girlfriend or anything like that. But in this story, apparently, he was supposed to have someone who broke his heart and made him even more powerful. So if we're going on the story of who Rey's grandmother would or could have been, maybe it could have been this woman. But it would have to be, of course, in the right timeline and this and that. Now, This video is a kind of a double threat because it answers two questions regarding who's his son, but then also who is the son's mother. Not the son, but Palpatine's son. So since it was his clone, he really doesn't have one. It's just him. So it does raise the question, who did he get with? Did he ever get with anyone? Or was he just too busy for that stuff? In Legends, there are different answers, and I'll let the lore master explain that to you guys if you haven't checked his channel out. I love his channel. He's a good guy. He's got good videos regarding that stuff. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say regarding the Underworld series, because I feel like a lot of it's being manifested into The Mandalorian, and a lot of it was supposed to focus on Boba Fett, apparently, and bounty hunters in general. So I feel like a lot of that, since he is on the set of The Mandalorian a lot, George Lucas, I feel like he's really putting a lot of the old ideas he had in there. So I don't know, maybe he'll put in this idea in there as well, that, hey, like maybe Palpatine, had someone that he was in love with and she broke his heart. But I don't know. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. That is the information on Palpatine's son. He's just a clone, and revealing Palpatine's, excuse me, Palpatine's non-existent wife or girlfriend or, hookup, whatever, doesn't exist because it was just a clone. So, hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed the information that is canon from the Rise of Skywalker novelization, the expanded edition. So, have an awesome rest of your day. Throw a like on this one if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you always.